Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the final round of the Grenke Freestyle Chess Open being held in Karlsruhe, Germany. Now, yesterday we did a video with Magnus getting to a score of 8 out of 8. This seems pretty improbable with a near 3,400 performance, but at long last, he's in the final round going for perfection, playing with the white pieces against Vincent Keimer from Germany. Now, you may recall that Vincent is a player who did defeat Magnus in the first Freestyle Grand Slam Tour event in Germany a couple of months ago, one of the only people who defeated Magnus in freestyle chess in recent memory. Now, Magnus 8 out of 8, this game has a lot of importance for Vincent because if Vincent Keimer, who's on 6.5 points out of 8, wins this game, he will get automatic second place and qualify for the next Freestyle Grand Slam Tour event in Las Vegas. So a lot on the line here. Magnus going for perfection, Vincent trying to get the elusive second spot to qualify for the next tournament. All right, without further ado, let's jump right into the action. So, Magnus has the white pieces. Once again, it is Fischer random chess with a random assortment, and Magnus opens with the move d4. Vincent plays d5, we get knight to b3, and here we have the move f6. Now, again, this is Fischer random chess. There are a lot of different possibilities for ways to open, but this move is already what I would say a slight mistake here from Vincent in this position. It makes some sense because you open up the diagonal and you also have the idea of playing e5 to build a big black center here. However, there is a slight issue, which is white can play the move knight to c5, and immediately Magnus is pressuring the pawn on b7. Now here Vincent plays the move knight to d6. b6 would also be an option potentially, but after the move knight to a6, this is one of the situations where after you play a move like c6, takes, and then white plays something like knight to d3, for example, white is significantly better with the two b's here, primarily because white can activate these bishops on many diagonals. You can go h4 and bishop h2. You can go c4 to open up this diagonal, or a3 and bishop a2, followed by c4. So in this case, the two b's are an advantage for white. So we get the move knight to d6 from Vincent, and now Magnus plays the move h4. Now this move is an excellent move, and honestly, right before I went to sleep here in Japan, I was paying a bit of attention to this game, and I thought, if Magnus plays h4, that will be amazing, because it is simply not the most human move. Magnus does play it, and this sort of speaks to how great he is playing at the moment, because this is a move that is played on the edge of the board, where white is pushing p potentially, but it also opens up a great diagonal for this dark square b. Now, white could obviously play a move like f3, but let's just say black goes c6. This bishop doesn't really have any scope on this diagonal, and it's simply walled in by the pawn. So when Magnus goes h4, not only can you put the bishop on h2 and use the diagonal, you can also push h5 here, and this is simply an excellent move. And it also shows why Fischer random chess can be so different than normal chess, simply because these sorts of ideas do not exist. When you start with the bishops on c1 and f1, normally the bishop is going to develop on this diagonal, just to illustrate the point. Actually, let me put the bishop just to set it up, just so you guys understand what I'm saying. Normally with the bishop on c1, for example, this bishop will mostly develop on this diagonal, or you will play for something like b3 to fianchetto the bishop. But in Fischer random chess, as you'll notice, because of the placement being so random, there are a lot of new ideas that are possible. So after h4, we get the move a5 from Vincent, Magnus goes bishop h2, and now we get the move b6. Magnus plays knight to d3. Here, knight a6 would be a mistake because black can simply move the bishop to a7. And this is the reason that Vincent played a5, was to prepare b6, where knight a6 is met by bishop a7. So we get knight d3. Vincent plays move c5 here, and already Magnus has gone slightly astray here. The computer actually wants knight a6, bishop a7, and c3, because it's trying to argue that with bishop d3 and b4, this knight won't ever get trapped, but Magnus is only human at the end of the day, and he plays knight d3. Vincent goes c5, and now we get the move c3, and here we have the move c4. Now what's amazing is that even though Magnus played the first 4 moves perfectly according to the computer, due to this one slight mistake with knight back to d3, out of nowhere, black is suddenly better. So we get knight f4, and now Vincent plays move b5. Worth pointing out that the last 5 moves from Vincent have been perfect, starting from this moment with c5, c4, and b5. All these moves are the top computer moves, and now we get the move f3. Vincent plays e5, and this is a move that is a slight mistake here. Computer prefers move knight to b6 over protecting this pawn on d5 first. No doubt Vincent was afraid of the move e4, where white gets this big white center, but after takes, and e5, computer thinks black is better. Now, probably the reason Vincent did not play this is he thought that that white would have some trick like takes, and something like kingside castle, and after takes, something like bishop f4 with all kinds of fossils on this black king. But the computer simply laughs and says after bishop to f7 followed by black castling, black is simply winning. But it's very hard to calculate this whole line to the end, and you sort of feel like there's probably something wrong. Even something like knight to d5 takes and castles could potentially be scary. Of course, here there's knight f6, but it just intuitively feels wrong, and you don't want to spend all your time on calculating the move. So that is why we get the move e5. Magnus trades, takes a pawn, and now we get queen takes h4. Now the position here is extremely imbalanced. You'll notice that black can castle the king, white has his knight on d5, black has his weak pawn on e5, but Magnus has been excelling in such positions throughout the tournament. So now we get the move g4. This is the best move according to the computer, a move that is really, really tough to play in my opinion, again, because at this point in the game, a logical move to me is something like e4, for example, or something like castles maybe, or maybe f4 as well. But g4 is the best move, and the reason I think it's the best move is that white can go king g2 here, guarding the rook, because white would love to play a move like bishop e5, but that would hang the rook, and you would lose the game. So when you go g4, just to illustrate the point, if you get this king to g2, the king guards the rook, and now you're simply able to play a move like bishop e5, and the king and the rook are guarding each other. And more importantly, this king on g2 is very safe. Black can't really attack the king easily here, so white is doing quite well. So we get the move bishop to a7. Magnus plays e3. Of course, he does not play king g2 here, because then there would be queen to f2 check, king h3, and after h5, this white king is getting sauced on the king side, and white will lose the game. So we get e3, stopping the checkmate on f2, and now Vincent plays queen h6. Here Magnus plays king g2, and now we get the move queen to e6. Magnus goes e4, guarding the horse on d5, and here we get knight c7. Magnus plays knight c2, and now we get to move castles to the queen side. Now this has some shades of a game that I played against Vincent recently, where I kept my king in the center as long as possible before going the opposite direction. And so when Vincent castles here, the game now is very, very sharp. For Magnus, who has already locked up the tournament with his perfect score of 8 out of 8, this must be a dream, because he knows that this game is going to be very sharp. And in this situation with nothing on the line except immortality, he wants that. So after castles, we get to move knight to e3. Worth pointing out, the computer here actually prefers black playing h5 right away to try and rip open this protection in front of the white king here on the g file, but we get castles and knight e3. Now we have queen to e8, Magnus plays queen e2, we get takes, and here we get the move h5. Now both sides have made some slight mistakes, but overall the quality of this game, in my opinion, has been extremely high up to this point. Both sides are making a lot of very logical decisions. Now, the one drawback, like in a lot of other games Magnus has played, is that you'll notice that he is the one who is up on time here. So in this position, even though Vincent has played a very good game, he is down 20 plus minutes on the clock with time pressure looming, much like a couple of other games which were very sharp, specifically Magnus' game against Parham Magsudolu, but Magnus is always on the right side of the time equation. So we get bishop g3. Vincent plays bishop to e6, and now we get the move pawn to g5, and here we have the move rook d7. Now, rook d7 is a slightly awkward move to me. I don't necessarily understand it that much, other than the idea is to play queen g6. If you go queen g6 right away, there would be knight e7, forking the king and the queen. But rook to d7 to me feels a little bit slow. Not a huge fan of this move. And now we get the move rook c to d1. Here, Vincent plays the move h4, and now we get the move bishop takes h4, and queen to d8 is on the board. Now, at this point, very tough to play. You'll notice that Magnus has been playing his moves fairly quickly here. Vincent is very low on time, probably right around here. This option of spending 13 minutes on rook d7 is the big mistake, in my opinion. It's a very hard position to play. You have so many options: knight f7, bishop d5, h4, king b7, maybe even a rook f8, possibly. So many options, I understand it, but sometimes you have to pick up the speed and change the gears. Now, we did see it in the game against Parham, where Parham seemed like he had survived, and then when he had 7 minutes left, he spent those 6 minutes, got down to 1 minute, and it proved fatal in that game. And now Vincent has gotten himself in the same situation, where he's down to nearly 5 minutes on the clock, but he doesn't have any obvious moves, and the position is still very, very dynamic. So we get the move h4 here. Magnus takes, we get queen to d8, and now we have the move queen to e1. Now, Magnus spends 12 minutes on this move. This is actually the only move to keep the advantage, by the way. If white were to play any other move, for example, say you play a move like bishop c2 just to illustrate the point, black can sack the rook with rook takes, bishop takes, and then queen g5, checking the king, attacking the rook. And after rook g4, takes, and a move like rook, I thought rook f7, black should be better here with ideas like rook f2. So we get queen to e1, stopping the rook sack as the queen will recapture on h4. Here we get the move rook to h5, and now Magnus plays move queen g3. Now this position is still better for white. It's nothing super special to write home about, but there are a couple things that matter in the game besides solely the best moves in the position. And one of the biggest things that a lot of people probably don't realize, especially as a beginner or an intermediate player, is that the clock can play a massive, massive role towards the end of the game. Vincent has made some slight mistakes here. He's marginally worse, but the time situation is just too much to deal with here. He's down to 38 seconds. He has to worry about this knight, which can jump everywhere, has to worry about the pawn on e5, has to worry about g6 as well. Too many threats, and so you aren't able to do pure calculations. You have to trust your instinct, and Vincent makes a fatal error here when he plays move knight to f5, which loses the game. Now, again, time management is a massive, massive part. And anybody who has watched my videos when I played Blitz specifically, you'll notice there are many games where I start saying you just gotta go, you gotta go. And that's because there's a certain understanding you have to have, or a certain like clock in your head, where when you get really, really low on time, you know that you just can't play the right moves unless it's a simplified position like a basic endgame. And it seems to me that Vincent sort of wasn't able to keep that in his mind. He was trying to find the best moves. And so now when if push comes to shove and he gets really low on time, he plays move knight f5. Computer still says after queen to e8, black is only marginally worse here. If white were to take what looks like a free juicer on e5, there's a fossil with bishop h3, checking the king, and after takes, it's uh-oh spaghetti-o time. You lose the queen and the game. Now, again, is queen e8 a move you can play? Maybe if you have 20 minutes on the clock. With 38 seconds, you're looking for simplifications, because when you get really low on time, the simpler the position is, the easier it is to play moves, because you don't have many possibilities. You usually have 2 or 3 moves to consider versus 5 or 6, like in this specific position, which is why we get knight f5. Magnus takes a knight. Vincent plays rook takes knight. We get takes, and now we get the move queen g4. Now, it is important to note that Magnus has been nursing his pawn advantage for a long time here in the game, but the reason that this is winning now is that black will no longer be able to stop these pawns or stop white from taking advantage of the file. There simply are too many weaknesses. So we get bishop to f7. Vincent plays move g6 here. Excellent move. You attack the bishop, you attack the rook at the same time, and now we get the move queen d2 check. Magnus goes king to h3, and at this point, if Vincent doesn't have a magic shot, he is going to lose the game, because there are too many pieces on pre. He's going to lose material, so he better pray there's a way to checkmate this white king. Sadly for Vincent, this is Magnus Carlsen, who even when he doesn't play the best moves, he still has ways to survive and keep the game going, but in this case, this is simply technically lost. So we get rook takes bishop. Magnus plays queen takes rook. We get bishop d5, and now we get the excellent move bishop to e4, creating the classic wooden shield here on e4, but more importantly, taking this light square bishop that Vincent has here out of the game. This bishop can no longer do anything. If you trade the bishops, like in the game, after queen takes, now you're left with a situation where this terrible bishop on a7 is just not very active. So we get takes, and now Vincent plays the move queen to h6 here, and Magnus plays king g2. Now we get queen g5, and here we get the very important move queen g3. King h3 maybe also would be possible, but after king h3, there are ideas like bishop to f2, threatening a checkmate on g3, and you still have to be a little bit careful. So we get queen g4, queen d2, king g3, and now Vincent plays the move king c7. At this point, Vincent probably wanted to go bishop f2 check, but after king to h3, if black checks, white drops back, and after queen d2, now white can play something like rook to h8, king c7, and here the move f6 is just crashing through. White's queen and rook combine to go for the checkmate on the back rank. Of course, it is a 90-degree right triangle as well. Let's just say black goes bishop b6 and king h3. There's no check on h6, which means this white king on h3 is completely safe, and now white will once again infiltrate and win the game. So we get king c7, and now Magnus plays the move f6, trying to push his p here, break through with one of these two pawns to get a queen. Vincent plays bishop to f2, and now we get the move king h3, and here we have bishop to c5. So Vincent goes bishop c5, Magnus takes on g7, we get queen to h6, and now we have the move king g2, queen to d2, and after the move king to g3, Vincent Keimer resigns in this position, and this means that Magnus Carlsen achieves immortality. He finishes with a perfect score of 9 out of 9 in this game. in this tournament, he has an average, or not average, sorry, I should say, he has a performance rating of somewhere in the range of 3,400. Technically, when you have a perfect score in a chess tournament, your performance rating is infinity. But I believe it's somewhere around 3,400. Just fantastic chess from Magnus. This game really shows a lot of skills across the board from Magnus. It shows, of course, the great understanding in the opening when he plays this early move h4 on move number 4. This is an idea that to me seems very, very tough to find. Maybe not to find this exact move, to see the whole sequence of knight c5 and h4. Very, very difficult. Finding this g4 move, another exceptional decision from Magnus, seeing this move. So he finds some really good moves. Also, though, I have to give a lot of compliments to Magnus on his time usage, specifically in this game, as well as the game against Parham, because he really uses time very well. And in both those games, this one and the one against Parham, both Vincent and Parham had their chances to save the game, potentially even turn around and win. But the fact is, the clock was massive. So on top of playing very good moves, Magnus's time usage was very, very good, very, very practical. And both Parham and Vincent, the slight difference in my opinion was of course, their moves weren't quite as good, but the time situation was a huge role in why Magnus won both of those games, specifically against the two players who he probably had the most difficulty with. So, great moves from Magnus, great time usage, great tournament, a dream for him. He goes 9 out of 9, simply perfection, really not achievable, or at least not easily achievable. I doubt it'll ever happen again, frankly, in this Grenke Freestyle Open. Now, you might be wondering, what does that mean for the rest? There was a big tie for second place between Fabiano Caruana, Lenier Dominguez, Parham Magsudaloo, Frederick Svan, many different players, Lenier Dominguez as well. So it's going to be a playoff at a later date to determine who will get that wild card spot for the next Freestyle Grand Slam Tour event in Las Vegas. So it remains to be seen. But for right now, I think we should celebrate Magnus having a perfect score, 9 out of 9. Great performance. You might be, for anybody who wants to be a detractor or doubter, you can say, well, he didn't really play any of the other top dogs. He only had to play Vincent. Everybody else was below 2,700. But at the end of the day, what I would say to that is the fact of the matter is you basically play against the players who do well. And none of the other top players were able to stay in contention or be up near the top until the very end of the tournament. Both Fabiano Caruana and Arjun Erigaisi, the two players who are in the top 10 in classical chess, who would finish tied for second place. Both of those guys start off poorly. By the end, they won some games and caught up. But you can't really fault Magnus because he simply plays the players he plays against. And none of the top dogs were able to stay in contention and have the opportunity to face him, except for Vincent, who played him in the final round. So, amazing performance from Magnus. Really great stuff to see. I don't know what that means in terms of the next event, but certainly Magnus is the big favorite right now, and he is the person to beat going into the next Freestyle tournament, which will be a couple months off in July in Las Vegas. So, on that note, I hope you guys have enjoyed this recap of round number 9 of the Grenke Freestyle Chess Open being held in Karlsruhe, Germany. If you are not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we'll be back with some more great content in the near future. But for now, I'm going to call it. I'm going to go out, enjoy my afternoon here in Kyoto, Japan, and I'll see all of you guys very soon. So have a great rest of your day. See you. Bye.